Hey, what if you could become a more discreet photographer? Or what if you could shoot from angles which you previously believed to be absolutely impossible? Basically, what if you could get around many of the limitations which we generally associate with photography? And what if there was a tool, a piece of technology which would help you go around all of these limitations? Would you embrace that tool? Would you use it? I think that for most of us it's a no-brainer. You'd say yes. So then my question to you is, why are you still using that viewfinder on your camera?
Hey, I'm Mitchell. For the past decade I've been living my dream, journeying around the world as a professional travel photographer. During this time, I've seen and I've learned a lot. And now I want to share the knowledge with you. Come along on the journey.
Here I am in the mountains again, still in Peru obviously. I actually wanted to share this video with you earlier, but I got a bit sick, was feeling quite average, so things got sidetracked a little, but I'm feeling fine now, and so I'm sharing this video with you now. I'm in a bit of shade amidst the trees and also kind of shielding myself from the wind, because occasionally there are some strong gusts that are coming through and you wouldn't be able to hear me if I was more out in the open. But anyway, whether you are or aren't still using your camera's viewfinder, in this video I want to help you really understand some of the main benefits of using one of these kinds of screens. And I'm gonna show you some techniques where using the screen rather than the viewfinder is particularly beneficial. I do want to get one very clear disadvantage of using the camera screen over the viewfinder out of the way right away. In very bright lighting conditions, or more specifically under direct sunlight, even the best screens can be very hard to see, or they can be downright unusable. So if some smartass wants to write in the comments, oh, but you can't use the screen in bright light, well, that's very true, but do you shoot in bright light all the time? No. So there. There is another disadvantage which is less obvious, and I will talk about that and about how to deal with it towards the end of the video. Now, in the DSLR days, I always dreamt of not having to do this, or this. Or even worse would be the times when I'd be laying down or crawling around looking into that viewfinder and missing much of the world which was around me. I also always dreamt about being able to be more discreet without having to shoot from the hip and messing up my focus or my composition because I just didn't guess it. Then one day cameras started to have these screens. They weren't very usable with the DSLRs, but with the mirrorless cameras they became very usable. We now have these two options. Both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. I won't go too much into depth into that. For photos and videos where I'm not filming myself, I do prefer this one. Let me know which one you prefer, or if you want me to talk more about why I prefer this one, just let me know in the comments below. Now to the main reasons to use the screen over the viewfinder and some techniques on how to use it. The first reason is that the impossible angles become possible. Look at these images. Most of them are taken around the hip to chest level, and I was simply standing while making the images. With something like this, I was crouching, but I simply put the camera really low to get behind the grass. I didn't need to lay down, I could compose my shot and I could focus by simply looking down at the screen. Here I was running with this procession, and I kind of just stuck my camera out and in like this, and I was still able to compose my shot and to even focus on the man's face. Some of you might say, well, I don't need the screen, I'm really great at shooting from the hip. And that's fine, that's what you might think, until you tried using the screen. There's just no way that you can have a higher success rate, essentially guessing your composition and your focus, versus actually being able to see your composition on the screen and being able to adjust all the settings by touching the screen. I should also mention that using the screen can also be beneficial for long exposure landscape photography, or any photography on a tripod. It is a pain to keep looking into the viewfinder every time you want to adjust your composition when you have the tripod set lower or higher than your eye level. This is just so much more comfortable. A very brief interruption. I just wanted to give it the last mention. This is the final week of the special on 2 of my best photography courses, the one on travel photography and the one on photo editing, which also includes all of the presets. You might have heard about this special a while ago and it was actually already meant to end, but some things came up, I got a little bit sick. As a result, you've had about an extra month. So if you miss out now, that's it. All of the details that you need are in the description below, and back to the main video now. The next important reason to use the screen. You don't change the dynamics of the scene, or you change them much less when you don't raise the camera to your eye. The very act of doing this signals, hey, I'm making a photo. I want you to look at these images now. I'm really quite close to the people here, but none of them are looking into the camera. Why? Well, firstly, all of these people, they knew that I was making photos of them. I was allowed into their lives, into their worlds. But what else? You guessed it. I didn't do this. I didn't send them that signal. Very frequently, people will perform for the camera, or their attention is just naturally drawn towards the camera when they know that they're being photographed. When I have the camera like this, they don't know when I'm about to make the photo. They don't anticipate. So they don't look into the lens. They might hear the click of the shutter and they might be like, oh, did you just take a photo then? But that's after they already do whatever they were doing. Or sometimes if I have the shutter set to silent, the people in front of the camera don't know when I'm making photos at all. That allows me to really let things unfold naturally. Here's a big reason to use the screen. When you're out on the streets or in public places, using the camera screen takes candid to an even higher level. When I used to use the viewfinder, I had my techniques to try and be candid, but they still all involved bringing the viewfinder to my eye, which made it hard to ever truly be candid. Also, the time that it takes to raise the camera to your eye, even if it's super fast, those are still precious milliseconds, which are sometimes the difference between getting the moment and not. Now, of course, it is possible to get candid shots using the viewfinder. I did do that for a very long time, but if you do have a tool which can help you out, wouldn't you just be mad not to use it? This is what I do when I try to get candid photos in the streets or in public places now. I kind of pick my spot, I hang around very casually, I look down at the screen, I frame my shot. Depending on my focus mode, I choose my focus area, or I'm ready to touch the screen where I'm gonna focus. And you know, I do all the stuff looking here. So this way it's nowhere near as obvious that I'm making photos or who exactly I'm making photos of. Of course, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm invisible just because I'm using this screen. I still have a camera, so that still draws some attention. Also, I am quite frequently a foreigner, an outsider, so people will still look at me. But if I can draw even a little less attention, or if I can be even a little bit more ready to make the shot, that can make all the difference in the world. And actually seeing your frame on the screen and being able to react super fast is really beneficial, even if I'm not trying to be candid. It can be really great to get the moment. As soon as things align within the frame, if I already have everything set up, I already see everything on the screen, so all I have to do is react and press that button. You might want to argue and say, but my favorite old school masters, they shot candid photos and they did just fine using the viewfinder. True, but first of all, with all of these secrets coming out, we don't even know if some of the most iconic images were truly candid or not, but let's say that they were. Remember, not as many people were as aware of photography back in those days. This whole awareness of photography, the hyper awareness, really only happened about 15 to 20 years ago. Now everyone is very aware and almost everyone seems to have the look, I'm cool, I'm having my photo taken pose. In parts of Asia, you often get this. In Peru, you often get this as a reaction, and these things are just not what I'm after. Now, the final reason to use the screen on your camera. You can interact with the person in front of the camera easier while you're photographing them. As a result, you can get interesting, perhaps more alive looking photos. Do you make photos of people while talking to them? Here's a technique that I use. I hold my camera like this, I'll frame my shot, I'll set everything up, and I'll talk to the person. While they're talking, I fire off frames every now and then, and occasionally I glance at the screen just to make sure that my composition hasn't come off or that I don't need to change the settings. I feel that images of this sort can be more dynamic, more telling. They sometimes bring out more of the person's character. For most part, my attention is on the person, and there's a certain connection and rapport between us. If I turn on the silent shutter, again, they don't even know exactly when I'm firing off shots, so there's no performing for the camera. Now, I did say that there is one less obvious disadvantage which comes when using the screen over the viewfinder, and it comes when you're making portraits. I'm talking the non-candid type portraits. When you raise the camera to your eye, the person knows to look into the lens. Here, the fact that this is a signal that a photo is being taken works to your advantage. You get that eye contact. Their gaze feels like it's directed at the viewer. When you are using the screen, depending on where you have the camera, or more frequently when you have the camera a little bit lower down, the person's eyes are just as likely to be looking into your eyes or at your face as they are to be looking into the lens. And in most cases, in portraits, this is not really ideal. But there are two ways to deal with this. The first is that you can just simply ask the person to look into the lens. I do this pretty frequently. Or you can hold the camera closer to your face, and that way the subject's gaze is automatically going to get closer to the lens. Also, of course, if your camera does have the viewfinder and you want to use it in such situations, then by all means use it. There's no rule against it, and all that this video has really been about is using the best tool for particular situations. I believe that the screen is more useful in more situations, but that doesn't mean that the viewfinder no longer has a role at all. Anyway, there you have it. Have I convinced you of the usefulness of the screen on your camera? Are you going to use it? Are you going to try it? Why would you not try it? I know that it takes some getting used to, but I have stated my case. If you are still not convinced at all and you're not even going to try using the screen on the back of your camera, I really want to know why, so please let me know in the comments below. While I am very convinced of everything that I've just stated in this video, I am open to your thoughts, to your reasons, and I'm also ready to be humbled and to learn something from you. That is all for now. Don't forget that this is the final week of the special on 2 of my best photography courses. I hope to edit a new experience video for you very soon and to have it ready. And goodbye for now.